this is my review of Sonic X. Okay, so this episode actually opens up a new arc, the Egg Moon arc. So the episode follows up immediately after Sonic and Shadow used Chaos Control to warp the Space Colony arc back into its stable orbit around the Earth, and in the process, the Chaos Control accidentally brought several people and places over from Sonic's world. And back to Station Square. And notably, some of them wound up crashing into previously existing buildings within Station Square, and just kind of got stuck there. So the president is adamantly concerned about the fact that it could very well get out of hand if characters from Sonic's world keep appearing and crashing, and it could get to the point where it could cause more harm than good that people are arriving there. And to that end, he recruited Chuck Thorndike to actually help out. So, yeah, he recruited Chuck because Chuck is kind of knows Sonic and his friends best, and has been working alongside them for a long time. And he would know how to best deal with the situation so that he could not so much keep them isolated from one another, but at the very least help keep the situation contained so that it doesn't become a full-blown problem later. Which Chuck agrees to, but Chris is a little less hesitant because he's there as well, because he's also a close friend of Sonic and his pals. So he was there as well to consult with the president, and he's notably a little out of sorts, and he eventually does bring it up later that night with Chuck pointing out that he's curious as to whether or not they would actually lock up Sonic simply because he's different, and points out that even though he looks different, he's deep down he's still the same as everybody else. And Chuck simply responds that he knows that full well, but they have to basically help the president just at the very least make sure that there are no injuries or anything like that, and just keep everything under wraps for right now. And also there's a scene with Rouge and Knuckles where they discuss the possibility of that, with some light flirting from Rouge, and with much to Knuckles' annoyance. But basically what they discuss is the possibility that there's a very good possibility that eventually people will stop seeing them as unique and start seeing them as annoying. So it runs to a very good risk that if too many of Sonic's friends wind up in their world, that it could eventually become a problem, and people would start locking them up simply because they're, different, and to basically just isolate them from the rest of the world. I mean, Sonic has kind of been changing public opinion on that, but he's the only exception. He's a hero, so obviously he's going to help. So obviously he's going to help the best he can to the best of his ability. But in any case, there is one particular group of individuals that had been transported to the Earth from Sonic's world, and they're the Chaotix. If you aren't a big fan of if you are a fan of the Sonic games and you've played any in the last couple of years, you'll know that the Chaotix are a group of detectives that usually work to solve crimes, and consists of Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon, and Charmy Bee. So, and they're kind of like a Three Stooges type deal shown in this iteration of them, where they mostly bounce off one another. Vector is the eccentric one, Espio's the more down to earth one, and then Charmy's just a rampant ball of energy. So the three kind of just bounce off one another constantly, and this entire episode just sets them up as a comedic trio, and it's kind of funny. But in any case, they arrived in Station Square alongside their detective agency, and are starting to conclude are trying to figure out what exactly is the best course of action, since not only do they have a case to figure out, which is later revealed in the episode, but they're also trying to contemplate where they are and why half of the moon is suddenly missing. So and they're trying to figure that out. And all of a sudden, Charmy Bee bursts into the room, bouncing off the walls, and wraps up Vector's muzzle in a big hug, and tells him that he actually figured out some information that might be helpful. And after a bit of back and forth between Vector and Charmy eventually gives him a newspaper revealing all of Sonic's deeds up to that point, and this is mainly just a scene for them to basically just do a clip show where they show all of Sonic's best feats, which is kind of a cool little nod to the rest of the series. But Vector is a little bit annoyed at the fact that Sonic is regarded as a hero, since he wants to be famous as well, although he doesn't openly admit it at first. And claims that once they actually solve their case, they're going to actually figure out they're actually going to be regarded as heroes as well, at least in their own right. At which point they break the fourth wall to introduce themselves, except for Charmy, who gets interrupted by Espio, and then they run out of time to actually get to him. It's a funny little sequence, but yeah. But in case, over the night, Dr. Eggman actually calls up the president and launches while simultaneously launching a missile into space. And basically what happens is that he launches a missile into space, then calls up the president to tell him he's launching a missile into space once they're on high alert about the fact that there's a missile being launched into space, and states that he feels bad about blowing up the moon and says that he's repenting for the whole space colony arc business, and decides that he's going to repair the moon free of charge, which he does. He sends a rocket up into space and builds it out so that the moon is now half real moon, half artificial moon, and now the moon is whole again. Although with a bit of Eggman technology mixed in, which is interesting to say the least. And everybody notices this, including Sonic, and it goes on the news the next day about how the moon is suddenly back to its round shape, and that Eggman has done it in mere minutes, and nobody is really sure why Dr. Eggman did this. Least of all the president, who was literally on a call with him that night, and knows that Dr. Eggman is likely scheming something, but isn't entirely sure what to make of it. But in any case, everybody back at the Thorndike residence begins asking as to what exactly Eggman could be planning. But Amy interrupts, asking where Sonic is, since he kind of never came back. And as it turns out, Sonic has his reason for ditching Amy. As it turns out, he's meeting with Dr. Eggman and trying to pick his brain and see why he actually decided to basically fix the moon, which is completely out of character, and it's obvious that it's out of character. So naturally, Sonic wants to try and get to the bottom of it. And while he's doing that, Vector claims that they're going to finally solve the case that they've been sent there to solve, and states that he has a lead. Although Espio and Charmy just look at him like he has a second head, since it's clear that he's being very smug and over the top about it, and they question if he actually has a lead. But as it turns out, he does, and as it turns out, he's looking into Cream. It's later revealed why, but as it turns out, he's looking for Cream for reasons that are currently unknown to us at the time of this episode. So, but yeah, basically what they think is that Cream got kidnapped by Sonic, which isn't true, and also that they can actually, find, and that if they can rescue her, that they'll actually be regarded as heroes, and with that begin formulating a plan on how to actually break in. Espio's initial idea is that he's going to sneak into the house using his ninja skills and go in through the window. But that winds up biting him because Amy is very upset about the fact that Sonic no-showed on her and is casually just swinging her hammer around and threatens to hit Sonic with it if he ever shows up. And what that causes Espio to fly out the window and hit a tree. And Vector and Charmy realize that they need to, probably do a more hands-on approach as opposed to just sneaking in. And the reason they think they need to sneak in is because it's actually because they know about the Thorndikes and how famous they are, and they realize that they likely have top-notch security. In truth, they have Mr. Tanaka and Ella, which isn't really top-notch security, but, I mean, Mr. Tanaka is actually a pretty solid fighter when he wants to be, I guess, so maybe they have a point, but in any case, they just decide to go in directly and talk to them. But in case, as they plan to do that, Sonic's still in his meeting with Eggman, asks him why he decided to fix the moon, and Dr. Eggman just states that he had a change of heart, which you shouldn't believe at all because it's Dr. Eggman. But basically his claim is that being evil is hard. Basically, being an evil scientist is hard. He has to build a whole bunch of robots. They constantly get destroyed. Then he has to build more robots to replace those robots. And it's just a vicious cycle that he just kind of, that he claims he just kind of got bored of and is thinking of retiring. So he decided to do some good for once and fix the moon. And obviously Sonic's a bit skeptical about the fact that Dr. Eggman is a good guy now and even sells him outright, but they're suddenly interrupted by somebody who I'll get to in a minute. And Sonic immediately recognizes her and knows exactly who she is. So, but in any case, and then he immediately goes home, which is where I'll get to that in a minute as to why he immediately goes home. But basically, Vector and Charmy break into the house and tell the rest of the group that they need to give up Cream willingly, or they'll be forced to use force. And obviously everybody's a little confused as to the whole situation. Tails namely doesn't know anything about who these guys are. He doesn't know who Vector, Espio, and Charmy are, so he's a little confused as to who they are and why they're there. And obviously Cream is confused because she's never heard of these guys either, and she doesn't know who these guys are. But eventually they all get into a scrap when they try to defend themselves from Ella because they mistake her for a man, which and Vector proceeds to use Charmy as a sword, which is really funny. And they all get into a fight. At which point Sonic shows up to break it up and reveals that the person he met is actually Cream's less known mother, Vanilla. So yeah, Vanilla the rabbit showed up, hired the Chaotix to find her daughter, and then she wound up running into Sonic anyway, who brought her to where her daughter was. So at which point she has a tearful reunion with her daughter, which is really, really cute. And then she thanks the Chaotix for their hard work in finding her, as well as Sonic for keeping her daughter safe. And while they're immediately confused as to what's going on, because they thought that Sonic had kidnapped her, Sonic takes that exact moment to call them out for calling him a kidnapper, and they proceed to get into an argument about it. Also, Espio is knocked out for the rest of the episode after being knocked into a tree. So it just pans to him it just zooms out to him lying on the ground outside, just asking for somebody to come out and help him. But as the group is arguing, it actually pans up to Dr. Eggman, who as I not so casually hinted, is indeed up to no good, and clearly modified the moon for his own nefarious purposes. So yeah, basically this episode sets up several different things, namely that several of Sonic's friends, lack thereof, I guess, in their Chaotix case, have wound up on the Earth. They've wound up in Station Square, and basically, and also Dr. Eggman fixed the moon for some reason, for some nefarious purpose that hasn't been revealed yet. So yeah, and also Cream finally reunites with her mother, which is cute, and that this was a long time coming. So yeah, most people don't know who Vanilla the Rabbit is. She appeared in the Sonic Advance games. I'm just gonna say that she appears in the Sonic Advance games and occasionally shows up otherwise, but usually she isn't present in the games much. She's usually present in some of the smaller titles. So usually the ones that have Cream as the focus of the game. So yeah, basically the Chaotix are in are in Station Square now. They're kind of, sort of not very good at their job, but but that's okay. and Vanilla is in the Station Square now. Again, it's interesting that she's there, but it does make sense considering that she usually is associated with the Chaotix. So that's probably why she showed up. She was brought in because she's associated with the Chaotix, who she paid to find her daughter. So that's a plot that just happened. And Dr. Eggman modified the moon. That's the main thing that happened this episode. Dr. Eggman modified the moon for whatever reason, and nobody's entirely sure why. All that should be noted is that Dr. Eggman just modified the moon for the funsies, and that's going to be interesting because it's clear that he has some sort of nefarious purpose to go along with that, but who knows? So, in any case, yeah, that's my review of Sonic X. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks, and I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!